The Psychology of Peak Performance, Tony Robbins. When Mia Tran stepped into the glaring lights of her first major pitch event, every instinct in her body screamed to flee. The auditorium swelled with investors and fellow founders, their expectant faces blurring into a sea of judgment. Her palms slicked, heart thrumming like a primal drumbeat. She had rehearsed every slide, every statistic, every anecdote, but none of that mattered now. Doubt crashed over her like an icy wave. What if they laugh? What if they see I'm not ready? In that frantic heartbeat, a calm, commanding voice whispered in her mind, "It's not about the challenge, it's about how you meet it." It wasn't her own voice, but the echo of Tony Robbins from a late-night seminar recording she'd binge-listened to in her cramped apartment. In that instant, she chose action over anxiety. She inhaled deeply, squared her shoulders, and launched into her pitch. By the final slide, the room buzzed with energy. 3 term sheets, 2 strategic partnerships, 1 life-changing triumph. And in that triumph, Mia learned her first lesson. Peak performance isn't luck. It's psychology sculpted by choice. Back at the Neural Next office, late nights debugging code had become Mia's realm. But her mindset still felt stuck in amateur mode. She had the MIT degree and technical chops, but every bug fix, every cash burn calculation reminded her she didn't feel like a real CEO. She'd been pouring all her focus into the what, features, funnels, fundraising, while ignoring the who behind the work. That's when she rediscovered Tony's principle. Where focus goes, energy flows. And she realized she'd been pointing her mental spotlight at problems, impending deadlines, dwindling funds, imposter syndrome, while her energy seeped away like water through a sieve. She committed to a new ritual. Before opening her laptop each morning, she would prime her physiology and mindset first. She'd plant her feet, power through 2 minutes of jump squats to rally her body, then spend 60 seconds listing 3 recent wins, no matter how small. Finally, she'd visualize delivering a perfect pitch, picturing nods of approval around the table. 10 minutes of ritual, but its impact rippled through her entire day. Her code flowed with fresh clarity, her calls crackled with confidence, and the team noticed the shift. Meetings ended with decisive action, projections edged upward, and for the first time in weeks, she felt the thrill of momentum. But mindset work wasn't just about morning jumps and affirmations. It was about rewriting the stories she told herself. Mia's personal rulebook was littered with toxic scripts. I'm not persuasive. I don't have the right network. Failure means I'm incompetent. One evening, she opened a blank Google Doc and confronted each belief. Where did it come from? Was it really true? She found evidence to the contrary. Her hackathon victory, the mentors who believed in her, the tiny deals she'd already closed. She crafted new rules. I am a catalyst who moves hearts and wallets. My past does not dictate my future unless I choose to live there. She read these new mantras aloud every morning until the old stories lost their power. In time, she pitched boldly, networked fearlessly, and asked for larger checks, with resounding success. Still, she knew that peak performance thrived on the company you keep. Her social media feeds had been clogged with doom-scrolling startup horror stories and petty drama. To change her environment, she invested in 2 intensive masterminds, one for AI founders, another for peak performance leadership. The fees made her hesitate, but she recognized that the real investment was in who she would become. In those rooms, she met Jamal, fresh from raising $20 million for robotics, Elena, scaling her fintech across 3 continents, and Rahul, a breathing coach who would teach her composure under fire. They challenged her assumptions, held her accountable, and in 90 days, she closed her seed round at a 30% higher valuation, onboarded a COO who slashed operational friction by 40%, and reclaimed hours of deep work through a refined morning routine. Mia also engineered rituals modeled on the world's elite performers, rising before sunrise for uninterrupted focus, working in 90-minute sprints punctuated by movement, priming her mind with short meditations and cold water exposure, then closing each day with a review of lessons learned, gratitude, and tomorrow's goals. These rituals became non-negotiable. Skip one, and she felt the ripple in her performance. Code grew foggy, calls felt strained, Sleep eluded her. Honor them, and she operated at peak potential. Yet true growth required embracing the edge of her comfort zone. Mia set 2 audacious goals: pitch on a global stage within 6 months and open an R&D lab in Singapore. Both terrified her, but she'd learned that action conquers fear. She secured a slot at Tech World Summit in Berlin, prepared her deck with fanatical attention to detail, and 2 days before the event, when panic flared, she messaged her coach, "I'm out of my depth." His reply, "Good, now go deeper." On stage, her voice trembled at first, but she leaned into the fear, letting it fuel her. By the final slide, the audience rose to their feet, and a leading European VC reached out the next morning. Then she spent a month in Singapore living out of Airbnbs, hiring local engineers, and discovering novel AI applications she never would have found from home. That edge, she realized, wasn't a place, but a mindset. Growth lives in discomfort. Through it all, Mia learned to shift from output fixation, revenue targets, user counts, valuations, to an outcome mindset, crystal clear clarity on mission and standards. She refined her vision. Neural Next will democratize creative intelligence, empowering every creator with AI that thinks like a partner, and used it as her North Star for hiring, product pivots, marketing, and fundraising. When a shady term sheet arrived, she walked away. When an acquisition offer misaligned with her mission, she insisted on better terms. Her team internalized the vision so fully that candidates recited it back in interviews. 2 years later, annual recurring revenue hit 5 million. Net Promoter Score soared to 78, and 2 patents were filed, all because a clear outcome fueled every decision. But peak performance is never just about hustle. It's about human connection. Mia had sacrificed relationships on the altar of output, missed birthdays, ignored friendships. So she carved out no meeting Wednesdays for family time, launched monthly volunteer culture days with her team, and hired an executive assistant to guard her schedule. She sent handwritten thank you notes to mentors, small gifts to clients, and public shout-outs for her team's wins. The result? Employee retention jumped from 65% to 92%. Clients extended contracts for 3 years, and 2 key hires emerged from referrals. She also built resilience into her success. Burnout culture had no place at Neural Next. Mia scheduled quarterly reset retreats in nature, tracked her sleep and stress with daily energy audits, and instituted weekly stop days with zero work. When they raised their Series A, she negotiated a 4-day workweek for herself and her leadership team, proving that sustainable performance outlasts endless grind. Finally, she embraced the legacy mindset, that true fulfillment comes from contribution. Mia launched the Neural Next Scholarship Fund for 100 underrepresented students each year, mentored emerging founders, and co-created an online community for AI entrepreneurs. Her journey, from an insecure coder to a transformational leader, came full circle when she saw students light up with the same thirst for impact she once felt. And throughout it all, she returned to Tony's words, "The only limit to your impact is your imagination and commitment." Now, standing where she never thought possible, Mia knew that peak performance wasn't a miracle. It was a discipline, an art and science forged in psychology. If you've followed her story this far, your blueprint is clear. Prime your state, rewrite your story, choose your tribe, embrace discomfort, focus on outcomes, nurture relationships, rest to rise, and lead to serve. Pick one small action today, perhaps a morning ritual, a bold ask, or a new belief, and move with massive state, unwavering belief, and relentless action. Because when you harness the psychology of peak performance, you don't just change your game, you change your life.